everybody. Thank you for coming today. My name is Heather Torres. I'm the program director for the Entertainment Business Masters program here at Full Sail. And we have a couple very important guests with us that are going to be talking to you about different types of business pitches today, which is something we all need to know how to do, right? So a very important topic. So I'll start out by introducing them. I want to share with you guys, we're going to try to lean on you quite a bit for a Q&A from the audience, a little more than what you probably are used to, so that you get to ask the questions and kind of run the show through this. So please get your questions ready as I do my introductions. So we'll start off by introducing Ms. Dale Moore. Dale is the head of product at Stratosphere, an Orlando startup bringing authenticity to influencer marketing by shipping high-quality products to micro-influencers each month. She has coached hundreds of entrepreneurs in Central Florida to start and grow successful businesses, serving as a program director at Starter Studio, a startup accelerator and co-working space, and other local groups such as Florida Angel Nexus and UCF's Office of Research. So please welcome Dale. Thanks, Dale. Next, we have Topher Morrison. Topher Morrison is the founder and managing director of Key Person of Influence USA, an executive leadership development and personal branding firm. Since 2014, he's advised and mentored several hundred CEOs and business owners towards accelerated revenue and profit growth, increased job creation, and decreased work hours. Topher has currently stepped into the political arena as a candidate for the mayor of his beloved city of Tampa. Topher has a 30-year speaking career that has taken him throughout the US, UK, Australia, and Singapore, and earned him a global reputation as an expert in mass communications and influence. So please welcome Topher. So we're here to talk about pitches today, right?
Indeed.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate you guys coming, and I know you guys have tons of experience. So can you start off by telling us a little bit about your background and how you guys got into the positions that you are today?
Sure.
Yeah, sure, I'll go first. So I've spent the past 7 years or so working specifically with startups and entrepreneurs, specifically tech entrepreneurs. I spent a few years out in the Pacific Northwest, and while I was out there, I got into working with angel investment groups who invest in startup companies, and working with entrepreneurs, and that's where my passion around the pitch really developed, right? It's so important. You have just a couple minutes, maybe 30 seconds, maybe 10 minutes to convey your idea. So I got a lot of experience out there and then decided I wanted to move back to Orlando, where I was from, to help the local startup ecosystem and help local entrepreneurs. So spent a few years working at UCF's Office of Research, helping researchers and technologists at the university translate their tech idea into a viable business idea and message. After that, I found Starter Studio, which is a nonprofit in downtown Orlando. They have 3 different co-working spaces where you can rent cheap, flexible space to work on your business or a project. But also, I ran a couple accelerator programs. So those are like structured mentorship and training programs for entrepreneurs. And again, I was mostly working with tech entrepreneurs, but we did a lot of work in the community working with kind of everyday mom and pop businesses too. So I spent a lot of time helping these teams develop mostly investment pitches. We had a couple big events that we'd run throughout the year where they'd get up on stage in front of 300 people and have 7 minutes to just spill their hearts out and tell their story. So there was a lot of work getting them all ready for that. I just transitioned a few months ago to work for one of these startups that I loved so much called Stratosphere. So I've just come on board with them to help them with business development and tell their story a little bit better as well.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So I've been speaking for 30 years, and probably about the last 10, 12 years of that, I was specifically in the area of presentation skills, platform skills, how to speak on TV. And through that, one of my promoters in London founded the company Key Person of Influence, and when he scaled it up to come into the American markets. He asked me if I would come on board and help him out with that. And for me, that was an opportunity to be around entrepreneurs that are way smarter than I am. So it was a very easy yes for me. And so for the past, I guess it's been 6 years now, I've been helping small business owners to not just develop their pitch, but create an ecosystem inside their business to where everything we do is based upon a very simple philosophy that the most influential people get the lion's share of the business. And so we help entrepreneurs increase their sphere of influence and how they're perceived in the public by building up their personal brand so then they can leverage that brand and grow and scale their company. And I've had the blessed opportunity to have some fun, and I was one of the judges on the TV show Pitch Six by Bright House Communications, so I have a lot of fun with that. Also a professor of practice at UT, and I'm on their board of fellows, and so I do a lot of mentoring with the Entrepreneurship Center over there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you're running for mayor, right?
And I'm running for mayor, yes. Yeah, and so now I'm doing the most important pitch of my life at this point in time.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. So lots of experience with pitching, guys, which is it's wonderful. And I think that's one of the things with a lot of our students, whether they be creatives and they're trying to pitch an idea to someone about their creative idea, or if they're business owners or working within a business, pitching is important in all levels, correct?
Yeah.
So there are different types of pitches, right?
Yes.
I would love for you guys to give a couple examples
Sure.
of a pitch. And I know you both have prepared two very different styles of pitching. So, Topher, would you like to go
Yes,
first?
I'll do mine in interpretive dance, and then
Okay.
she'll talk on hers. So there's several different types of pitches, and this is one of the biggest mistakes I think that we see is that generally business owners and entrepreneurs, they have one way of delivering their pitch. And so they almost kind of force the listener to fall into alignment with how they pitch their business. And we feel that's a fundamental flaw. We feel there are 5 main pitches that every business owner should have. A quick pitch, or what a lot of people call an elevator pitch. A social pitch, which is one where you get your drink in your hand, you're at a picnic, you're at a networking event, and you don't have to win them over in 15 seconds. You've got a few minutes. Or maybe somebody says, hey, tell the audience what you do, and you've got a captive audience for 60 seconds or 90 seconds or something. Then you got your sales pitch, which is totally different because that's to convince people to give you money in a transaction. And then you have an investor pitch, which is to convince people to invest into your business, either their time or their money or what have you. And then there's the media pitch, which is how do you pitch your business to media channels such that they would want to cover your story, highlight your business, and give you essentially free airtime, which is one of the earned media, which is one of the best things an entrepreneur could ever hope for. So those are the various different types of pitches. Would you do your investor pitch? Yeah?
Yeah. if
Okay,
you want.
I'll do a social pitch. You can do an investor pitch. So I'll do the social pitch. Do you want me to stand to do that, or is it, I guess I can sit.
Whatever.
I can do it sitting or
whatever
standing.
would happen in a
That's fine.
social situation.
Well, I think usually, and here's the thing with the social pitch, and if you listen carefully, what you'll hear is you're going to hear distinctly different segments or topics, but each one of these things, if I wanted to, I could deliver in and of itself, and it just sounds like a conversation. But altogether, it's a mini presentation or mini pitch to get people to really do one of two things, which is either say, man, I need to sit down and have a discussion with you, or, man, you need to meet my friend. This is perfect for them, right? Those are the two things that you kind of want. So here would be a simple social pitch. I'm at a social environment. So he says, hey, everybody listen up. This is my friend Topher. Topher, tell him what you do, kind of a thing, right? We get this stuff all the time. So it might be something like this. Hey, my name's Topher Morrison. I'm the managing director of Key Person of Influence. We're a leadership development firm, which is in 7 countries worldwide. We've trained well over 5,000 entrepreneurs to help them grow and scale their business. You know, one of the biggest problems that small business owners face is threefold. Really, number one, success breeds competition. People see how well their business is going, and so they want to get into the industry, and all of a sudden these newbies come along and they start lowering their prices, and despite having a really great reputation and track record, you find yourself having to compete on price, and nobody likes doing that, right? The second problem is the fact that usually their biggest competition is themselves. They're always trying to outperform their last quarter's revenue, so they spend a lot of time and energy and money trying to build up their lead sheets. And then the third thing, I guess, probably is a combination of the first two. They just get burnt out. It doesn't take long for somebody to go, wow, this used to be fun a year ago, and now I'm just tired. Well, we solve that problem through a 5-step methodology which assists people in becoming a key person of influence or an industry-recognized thought leader. The effective result of that is that they can make a lot more money, work a lot less hours, and have a lot more fun. And the reason why I got into this is because I feel that small business is where the fun's at. You know, it's like we're these little jet boats in the ocean called the economy, and the tides are changing all the time. Well, these big industrial tankers have to take forever to shift around, but we can zip and zag, and we can have a lot of fun. And to me, that's where the excitement of life is at, is being able to pivot. And that's just kind of the thing that I find most enjoyable about it. So we're known for taking business owners and turning them into industry recognized thought leaders.
Wonderful.
That's my pitch.
Hey, guys, round of applause.
So the outcome there is hopefully to get people to go, man, I want to learn more about that, right? Or, man, I know somebody who'd be perfect for that. I got a friend who works way too many hours, and they're always complaining about being burnt out, and I send them over to them. But that's a totally different thing than an investor pitch, right? Where now you've got an agreed upon captive audience who is already listening, and they want to learn. And I think you could probably do a great job with that, because obviously you guys have a good investor pitch. They caused you to actually come on board and work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the pitch that I've prepared for you guys got my company the funding that they went out to San Francisco to pitch a big-time VC and a syndicate. So hundreds of angel investors pitched in because of this 2-minute pitch that my founder gave. And the hard part with investor pitches is you need to get their attention very quickly, but also you'll find with most accredited, sophisticated investors, they want to cut to the chase too. So not only do I have to tell them about the problem and the pain points of that problem, I have to tell them about my solution, got to tell them about my business model, my market, how we're going to scale, all within, say, 2 minutes. Now, I'd love to have 10 minutes to talk about this, but I've just got to cover a little bit of each of these bases. So a lot of elevator pitches to investors are typically maybe a minute or two, and you've got a lot of information to pack in. So we'll see how this goes. You guys got to cut me a little slack. This is my first time giving this pitch, all right? Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Dale. I'm the product director at Statusphere. We help brands scale their influencer marketing efforts. So for the past 5 years, my friend Kristen has worked at a digital marketing agency managing influencer outreach. And what she found is that when most brands think of influencers, they think of celebrities like Kim Kardashian. Now, Kim gets paid $500,000 just for one tweet, which is not feasible for most brands to pay for. And in reality, there's this whole network of micro-influencers all around us. So say you have some fashionista friend or trendy coworker who posts a ton of awesome content online on their Instagram. Well, we make real purchasing decisions, and much more often, based on what they post versus the likes of Kim Kardashian. And it's proven that these micro-influencers have 4 times the engagement rate of their celebrity counterparts. But brands suck at managing influencer campaigns. They either spend hours managing it internally themselves, or they buy expensive platforms or pay for agencies to manage it for them. But a lot of these solutions end up failing and falling short. But on the influencer side, they're stuck spending hours reaching out to brands to try to get their attention and to get no response. And even if they do get selected, they leave feeling undervalued, underappreciated, and a lot of their creativity is stifled in that process. So we've created Statusphere to help brands connect with these influencers at a larger scale, because there's just so many of them, they can't do it one-on-one. So how it works is influencers apply to be a part of our network, and if they're selected based on our strict criteria, then we match them with products based on their likes and dislikes. So, for example, a vegan influencer is only going to be shown vegan products. So the influencers pick which products they want in their box. So we have different sizes each month. Kind of like a subscription box for influencers, but they're doing it in exchange for doing required actions online. So Instagram post, posting on their blog, maybe a YouTube review video. And once they post, at the end of each month, we send a report to the brands with the performance metrics to see how well it succeeded in creating a new audience, new sales, brand awareness, whatever it may be. So our business model, we have a flat rate cost per influencer plan. We also sell subscriptions to brands. We have over 75 brands now in our boxes in industries primarily like beauty, fashion, lifestyle, food. And some of our biggest brands you might know would be Barney's Coffee, Freeman Beauty, even Misfit by Fossil Watches. And so what I'm here here to do today is to ask you for your support and introductions to brands who want to boost their social media presence and reach new audiences online. Our unique subscription box model and our network of vetted micro-influencers allows brands of any size budget to connect with hundreds of influencers and get them posting within 30 days about their product. But it gives them the brand awareness, the content creation, and the ROI that they need, but in a much more authentic way. So thanks so much, and be sure to follow us at Statusphere. I practiced a few times.
That was perfect. Both of you guys did amazing jobs with those pitches. So obviously there's some value in this, right? I mean, it helps you clearly communicate your idea in a way that people can understand and get excited about. What are some of the techniques that you use in order to put together this well-crafted message?
Okay. I'll share a quick one. So we have a little rhyme that we use. So one of the key things that you have to have in a good pitch is clarity. Because the last thing that you want is to have people to think during your pitch. And so if you're trying to be cutesy and unique and fun and creative, and it's so cutesy that they have to ask themselves, what is that? Then that's not going to work, right? So oftentimes we encourage people to just dumb it down and keep it as simple and as clean as possible. So we have a little rhyme that we do for a quick pitch that is called name, same, claim to fame. So you say your name, whether it's your name of your company, whatever. The same would be like, what are you? Like, what's that generic Google term that people would get? We're a marketing company, you know? And then your claim to fame would be, what is that thing that makes you different from every other marketing company, right? So it's Dale, I'm with Statusphere. We're a marketing company, and we specialize in helping product-driven companies get through to influencer marketers so they can go direct to their customers. Name, same, claim to fame, right?
That's perfect.
Yeah, you gotta have that clarity. You don't want them thinking, right? I had one person, like you don't want to sit there and go, my name is Tom, I'm an automotive transportation destination specialist. No, you're a car salesman, right? Just keep it clean, keep it simple, right? Yeah.
That's perfect. Did you have something to add to that?
I would say practice and start small. I see a lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake of hiding away their idea and their presentation till it's absolutely perfect. And it's not going to be perfect anyway. As an entrepreneur, you need to put yourself out there and take that risk and get on stage or in front of just your friends and family and practice. And you're going to fail and you're going to mess up. But if you start by just taking these small chunks and building it up over time, you're going to fine-tune this pitch that turns into something much more powerful.
That's great. So you guys have done this many times. Can you? What are some of the biggest challenges that you run into when you're in an environment you're trying to talk to someone, get their attention, just pitching in general?
As the entrepreneur, go ahead though.
So one of the biggest challenges is making sure that the person that you're pitching to is in a space of listening. Right? Like we've all seen those people that it's the equivalent of the musician who goes to a concert and throws the demo CD at the person up on stage. They're not in a space of listening to your CD, right? So they're going to take it and just throw it away. And that's what happens a lot of times if you're trying to go out and you're trying to pitch an investor or you're trying to do a social pitch or a sales pitch, but you have an established permission. There's no yeah, I'm interested. Tell me what you do. Like if they don't say that, you don't really have a right to deliver the pitch kind of a thing. So really making sure they're in that window of listening to where they want to hear what you're saying. Yeah.
And then once you have their attention, I see a lot of entrepreneurs skip to talking about their solution and get really into the technology because they're so excited that they have this perfect idea. But you haven't gotten any buy-in or interest from your audience at that point, right? You got to spend time getting this emotional hook and getting them wondering like, oh wow, like this is a huge problem. How are they going to fix it? So I see a lot of entrepreneurs get wrapped up in kind of the second half of the pitch rather than taking time to really lay out a clear problem that they can understand.
Yeah. Always present your problem before you present your solution to make sure they understand what the problem is. Otherwise, they'll be sitting there going, I don't get it though. Why would I need that? You've really got to engage them into that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then you probably see this a lot helping with high-tech startups. They love to talk about the inner workings of how they discovered the solution and the back end. Investors don't want to know how it works. They just want to know that it works. right? So don't get too caught up. If you feel like you need to have a flip chart and a diagram in order to explain, you're probably a little too detailed on your pitch.
Awesome advice. And a lot of our degree programs, we have a capstone project at the very end. I know for the undergrad in business and also in the master's program, they have to pitch their ideas. And so this is very helpful for them. And I tend to see the same thing sometimes because I watch every single one for our program as the students graduate. And I think some of the biggest issues is them failing to identify the need, the problem, and then having a clear and concise solution. So you know exactly what you do, right? I think sometimes we get lost in all the details and we want to share a lot of information about our dreams and aspirations, but being clear and to the point is so important, right? So can you tell us a little bit about the importance of just your presentation style? So maybe like body language, if you have slides, or I loved your box, you came branded today. Can you tell us a little bit about that and maybe provide some tips on what we should be aware of when we're putting a pitch together from that perspective?
Sure.
Yeah, one thing I'll say off the bat with presentation style is you absolutely want to be confident, but you want to be confident in an approachable way. You don't want to seem like you're on stage and just kind of talking to no one, talking to yourself. And a lot of times, truthfully, entrepreneurs or someone presenting will get very nervous and caught up, so they'll get defensive about what they're saying. So just relaxing a little bit and opening up to questions and feedback from whoever your audience may be. But that's kind of presentation style and just how you present yourself on stage. And then we've talked through some mistakes. I'm sure you have some examples of.
Yeah. From a presentation style, remember that you're solving a problem in someone's life. And that's something to celebrate. That's something to be proud of. That's something to have some passion and some energy behind. And so if you get too caught up in the technical aspects of your solution, you can lose sight of what that heart or that emotion is. So make sure that when you're presenting, your eyes are up, you're excited, you're making eye contact, you're looking at them, you got a smile on your face, right? Nobody wants to sit there and, yes, we've created an amazing solution for people who suffer from long drives on the way to work, and we found that the average person nods off 14 times, and we've figured out how to solve that. Like that's
Riveting.
Nobody's going to want to listen to that, right? So make sure that you have some exciting, some passion. That's got to be a part of that presentation. And to what you were saying, one thing that I see a lot of people do is an investor might ask, especially in an investor pitch, if an investor pitch gives you feedback or challenges you on something, if you make that investor wrong, you will not get that investment. So you're better off to just say, thank you for the feedback. That's really valuable. I appreciate you, right? Take that. You can tell them why they're wrong later after they say, let's do our due diligence, right? But just be willing to accept whatever feedback they're giving you. Yeah.
Wonderful advice. So I don't want to hog this. I want to allow the students to ask some questions because I know they're going to be in the position soon to where they're going to be pitching their own ideas. So do you guys have any questions for our guests here today? I see a few hands over here. They're going to bring you a mic. So.
One thing that I would like to ask is,
Where are you?
what is the
Okay.
best advice that you could give
In the back.
to someone who has difficulty sharing their ideas?
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Sure. What is the best advice that you can give a person who is like to boost their confidence and to share their idea?
Okay. I think the biggest thing would be this. We call it a presentation, but it's not. It's just a conversation. You know, when I get up here, it's easy for us to go, oh my God, there's all these people looking at us and we're delivering this presentation. But I really, in my head, I just try to sit there and go, man, I'm just having a fireside chat with you guys, right? This is me and it's you and it's just me and you. And then when I come over here, it's just me and it's you and it's just me and you. And so it's more of just a one-on-one conversation. It's not a presentation. You don't have to sit there and think that it's so formal and official. Investors don't expect you to be perfect. They don't expect you to be this polished professional speaker. They expect that you can clearly articulate your problem and your solution. Yeah.
And remember that you know your idea or solution better than anyone. So if you feel like you mess up and miss something important, chances are that they're not even going to notice. But kind of going back to what I said earlier about practicing, forcing yourself to get in front of other various audiences. There are a lot of free events and meetups that you can attend. Like 1 Million Cups is something that happens
Well, it was the one I was thinking of. It's great. Yeah.
every Wednesday morning at Rollins locally. They have chapters all over the nation. You can get up and talk about your idea. You can have it very formal, have slides, or just something conversational. But it's really just good practice. There's also a lot of tech and business meetup events through meetup.com that you can find locally. So I encourage you to just sign up, force yourself to sign up, and then you'll be dedicated to putting together some sort of pitch or presentation.
Great question. We have another one over here.
My name's Benji. I'm in the entertainment business program.
Could you, a little bit more on the mic? Can't hear
Can you hear me now? All right, bet. Okay, so my name's Benji. I'm from the entertainment business program. I had a question about the investor pitch. So as someone that's getting ready to pitch to investors, like an idea about venue, how would you go about that? Because I know you guys said name, saying, and claim to fame, but like when I'm up there actually pitching my idea to investors, like what are some points I should definitely hit on, or some things I should definitely speak on to ensure that they're interested in investing in me and my company?
Yeah, so there's some core elements to a typical investor pitch, and if I miss any, please chime in. Again, we said start with your problem, right? Then go into your solution, but talk about your solution from sort of a benefits perspective rather than just features. Like, ooh, it does this fancy little thing when you do this. It's like, no, talk about how it's solving that problem, right? You can then go a few different ways. Talk about who your audience is, who's your market, who is going to buy this, who's going to go to your venue, who's going to pay to help get your venue started. Talk about how you make money, right? Business model a little bit. You can talk about competition. So say there's a ton of venues out there. How is yours going to be different and unique? This is very, very important. Don't bury that too far into your presentation. And then you can also talk about, again, it kind of depends on your audience and the setting. You can talk about what you need in terms of funding or other resources or support. Have a very clear ask to your audience. And then wrap up with some very compelling piece. If you want them to remember one thing about your whole presentation, what do you want it to be? Because whatever you say in those last 20 seconds might be the only thing that they remember. So those are some kind of typical elements to an investor pitch. But if you really feel like you don't know how to fill in those blanks, I'd recommend reaching out to probably a lot of contacts through Full Sail and grab coffee with people in the industry, people who work or own other venues, and kind of interview them. Ask them about their experience, how they got started, what it's like to work there, and it might help you figure out what are the core elements of what they're talking about.
That question, by the way, we could probably talk the entire
Yeah.
hour on just that thing, and you'd be feeding off each. There's a couple other things. Did you notice, by the way, that when she did her investor pitch, she had a very specific request at the end? That's important in an investor pitch. But in my pitch, I had no call to action. Because that's not the point of a social pitch. The social pitch is to be social, right? You have to have that call to action. Make sure that it's specific. The other thing I was going to say was when you had said something. It was there was something about what tips did you have? The first thing was the
Problem, solution, your market, customer.
Oh, market. Thank you. Yeah. Here's a surefire way to never get an investment. When they ask you who is your competition, say no one. If you say no one, you will not get an investment because they'll know you have not done your market research to find who your competition is. Because trust me, there's always competition. I don't care if you've invented a car with a moat and nobody has that. Not that that'd be possible, right? Find something that you can compare that to, right? So don't just say, there is no competition. We're the only one in the world that's doing that. First off, that's probably not true. I mean, we're not that creative. So find somebody close and say, well, the closest thing we found is such and such a company. And here's where we're different from them. They will appreciate that much more than, we don't have competition. Mm-hmm. You always have competition.
And same with your market and talking about your customer is not everyone. You might
Oh,
envision
yes.
a big venue that lots of different people and lots of different events go on, but try to dig in, and again, by doing research and talking to people in the industry of where some of those smaller niche market opportunities are.
Yeah. Another thing you never want to say, because she tapped on this, the one thing that just grates on the nerves of investors is there's 7 billion people in the world. If we can just sell to
2%.
1% of the 7 billion, we'll have $80 gazillion, right? It's like, oh, that's it, like they've heard that so many times, and it kind of shows that you really don't know who your market is. I don't care if your product is for everyone. Toilet paper. I've got the best toilet paper in the world. Everybody needs toilet paper. I'm not going to say everyone needs my product. I'm going to say our toilet paper is specifically designed for divorced women over the age of 40 who are looking for a beautiful pastel to decorify and beautify their bathrooms, right? Anybody can use it, but I'm going to find that specific target market.
Very
Note
good
to
advice.
self, get female-based toilet paper. All right. My new invention.
Very
Like,
good. We have another one over here.
So my question is for about pitching to investors would be like, what's something we can do to like stand out or be like more memorable, so like it would make the investor more inclined to invest in our idea or company?
There's two things that work really well. Before and afters. So if you've done your case studies and you've got results, like this was so-and-so before our product and this is them after our product, that'll stand out. And then if you can do a live demonstration, that's going to stand out as well. So if your product is demo-friendly, like this is a really cool demo-friendly thing. She could have had this with all the products inside, and if you're doing a full investor pitch, I would imagine you'd
Yeah.
open it up and you'd have the beautiful thing and you'd show them. This demonstrates really well. Toilet paper, not so much. Right? So depending upon your product, it might be really great for demonstrating, and then if not, before and afters work well.
And I'd say also getting really good at answering questions. And again, this goes back to practice and experience, but you stand out. You can have a perfectly polished pitch, but if you can't answer their questions succinctly and what they want to hear, then that shows through that you don't really know what you're talking about, or you don't have the confidence to do that.
I think it'd be fair to say that you gain an investor's attention by your pitch.
Right.
You win the investment through your ability to answer questions. Yeah.
Very good. Great question and great answers, guys. We have another question over here.
Hi, thank you for coming to do this today, because it means a lot to all of us, I'm sure, and I'm nervous, obviously. My name is Richard James Burgess III, and since you said you don't want to say that nobody is your competition, I'm curious as to what they would respond to or respond with if you said everybody was.
I don't know. I've never heard anybody say that. I think they'd probably say you still don't know your market. It's the same type of a thing. Or they go, well, then it's too red of an ocean. If you're not familiar with that term, red ocean, comes from a book called Blue Ocean Strategies. And basically, the smartest investors, the smartest businesses are ones where they go to blue ocean, where it's not bloodied up with all the sharks eating all of the meat already, right? So you want to be the smart fish and swim to the blue ocean where nobody's feeding. If you were to say everyone's my competition, they're probably going to say, well, it's probably too risky of an
Yeah.
investment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you need to be able to identify of all your competition who can most quickly move into doing what you're doing and copying what you're doing. If they see this opportunity as well, who has the resources to do it, who has the most kind of similar solution to what you're doing. Yeah.
You know, now my real answer comes as an inspiration for what you just said. You pick the number one competitor out of everyone and compare yourself to them and how you're better than them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually got a few, if that's all right.
Mhm.
That was just one that came up when you said that. So let's say I've got a problem, I've got a solution. I actually have quite a few things already in play. But like you said, it's really broad, and I'm trying to focus in. Since I was curious about saying everybody's on competition, what if I'm trying to build a network that anybody could be part of? Let's say I have a network somewhat built where I know people from all over that can do all kinds of things, and my problem is not just one problem, but several different problems that I can network with those people and get people the help they need wherever they need it.
Okay. Do you want to go?
Yeah, I have kind of a
Okay.
partial answer.
Okay.
but Go ahead.
So, if you look at the best products or brands in the world that really kind of solve everything for everyone, Amazon.com is like the world's largest general store. But they didn't start trying to be the world's largest general store. So what they did is, and this is the trends that we're seeing right now, is that if you really want your company to be one where it solves everything for everyone, start by finding what's the one problem for one type of person that you can start with. So say, what's the most important out of all of these great ideas that if we launched this one, we create a daisy chain effect and all of these things happen. When Bezos opened Amazon, he found a very specific target of rural towns that were more than 60 miles away from a bookstore. So he knew that those people wouldn't drive to a bookstore. So when Amazon.com opened, it wasn't even in the US. It was just targeted specifically to these specific cities that were towns 60 miles outside of a bookstore. And then it grew and it grew and it grew. And then after he got books all across the country, then was it CDs back then? I don't know, some kind of music thing, right? And it just kept growing. So I'd say find that one thing that could daisy chain all the others together.
Okay.
And in one approach, so if you have an idea and it's big and you're trying to narrow in, figure out where to start, there's a big movement in the startup community called the Lean Startup process. So they call it customer discovery. There's a few things you can Google here and find a lot of information. So Steve Blank is a very well-known professor and businessman who came up with this methodology. Business Model Canvas is a really good tool to check out. But the whole point behind the customer discovery process, what I want to focus on is you have an idea, but you have a million assumptions behind that idea and that business of how it will work. It's all hypotheses that you need to go out and test. So think of it like a scientific experiment, right? You think you know how it's going to work. Here's your hypotheses. You need to go out and talk to people and research and get data to validate those things. So you can do these very informal, low-pressure interviews, which are just conversations with people who you think would be most likely to use that network. And it'll help you hone in as you start to hear their responses in terms of, okay, what are your biggest frustrations in this area of current network? So like, what are you using? What sucks about them? Those kinds of questions that aren't about your idea or solution, but about them and their problems that gives you this data to then build something that's better suited for them. So that might help you hone in on a certain like smaller market or target customer to start with. And then if it's wrong, you quickly pivot and you start somewhere else.
Can I ask one more?
One more.
She's
One
in
quick
charge.
one. We have other people that have questions.
Well, let's say hypothetically on the spot, I just narrowed my focus to technical consulting or technical solutions in the local area.
What's the
What's
question?
the question?
Is that narrowed enough, or is that focused enough? Technical consulting, basically. I'm in cloud technology. I forgot to mention that, but we work a lot with hardware and software, and we learned a lot about them that a lot of other people don't know. So if I want to build my company focusing on that, helping people that have a problem with a computer or a phone or any kind of tech, is that focused enough?
It can be. You just have to go out and test it. Now back to what Topher was saying. Just get out there and test it, and you can always pivot if it's wrong. Maybe it's just your message. Maybe you can provide them the right service, but how you're conveying it is wrong. So just start there, and then you just have to see. Don't like overthink it or over prepare.
Yeah, and be willing to let the outcome direct the pitch as well. So go out, force yourself to meet 100 people who have computers in their office, and then deliver your pitch and see what the response is and track all of that.
Right.
And then you'll start to see a hot spot. If you map it out, you'll go, wow, you know what? It seemed to female-owned businesses were far more responsive than male-owned businesses. Or male and female didn't matter, but it was business size. They had 5 computers or more, they were really active, but if they had 15 computers or more, they weren't active. So our sweet spot is between, and then all of a sudden you start to find out who your niche market is. It's business owners with 5 to 15 computers. Something like that. So be willing to look at the data, because that's what the investors are going to look at anyway.
Very good. No, you're good. Where's the other mic? I
Right.
see a lot of hands. There it
These
is.
are good.
Hey there.
Awesome. Good question.
Hey there. Before we launched into questions, you mentioned something about staying in agreement with an investor. We're in a creative school where we just create content. A lot of it can be emotional. For instance, music, it could be film, photographers. We're all out here trying to get our ideas to the world. How important is it, without those ideas being conveyed to the world, it comes with criticism. Some people might like it, some people might have a way they might do it. It always looks better when you're outside of the game, right? So when someone shares their opinion, how are some ways you would stay in agreement with that person?
I've got a good response
Go
for this
ahead,
one because
yeah.
nothing will test your emotional resolve more than getting into politics. Ah, man, I tell you what, you want to get beat up, become a politician. It's amazing. And because in politics, everybody's favorite response is why your idea sucks. So I can speak to that one real well. There is, in my opinion, one response and one response only, which is truly effective when somebody's criticizing your craft, your company, whatever it is. And that answer is, thank you for the feedback. I appreciate that. I really do. That's it. Don't defend it. Don't justify it. Don't try to tell them why they're wrong or why you're more right than they are or how they're just confused and they haven't really thought about it through the true, niche. Just say, thank you, man. I really appreciate that feedback because I fundamentally believe that the quality of your communication is equal to the response that you get. So if you don't like the response you're getting, don't blame them. Just go say, well, how did I communicate that in such a way that even felt that they thought it was appropriate to give me that type of feedback, right? And then go back to the drawing board, get into your mental workshop, and kind of retool that a little bit because it is probably valid feedback. And I struggled this with for a while, and then I realized that it takes a lot of courage to criticize someone right in front of their face. Yep. So it might be as infuriating as it might be for you to hear the feedback. It might be just as scary for them to say it. So don't punish them for it. And just say, yeah, well, thank you for the feedback. That's a great idea. Thank you. Yeah. Or you don't even have to acknowledge that it's a great idea. Thank you for the feedback. That's very valuable. Right? Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for your response.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did you have anything on top of that?
Only thing I was going to add is in the entrepreneurial world that translate as coachability. I will tell you that is the number one factor for success if you're trying to build a business, whatever it may be. You don't have to take everyone's advice, but taking it gracefully, and maybe some of it you want to consider, maybe some of it you don't, but just receiving it in a pleasant way says a lot more than getting defensive all the time.
Very good. Our next question here.
Hello. Hi, my name is Abieri. I'm in the entertainment business program. I just had a question about the investor aspect of, well, everything is about the investor aspect of what you're talking about, but I wrote down a few notes about meetup.com and 1 Million Cups on every Wednesday, so those are really good pointers. Thanks for giving those up. But I was wondering, in terms of like getting investors, because there are people, like you were saying, who are trying to give startups to start. They need like ample amounts of funding. They're trying to give ample amounts of funding. I know that there are people who are actually, that's their job, like that's their career, is to give the money basically. So I was wondering, besides these two, the meetup.com and the 1 Million Cup on Wednesdays, how are some ways that you can get the investors to kind of come to you besides hashtags and things of that nature? What can you do so that you're always in contact with the investors? Like the investors are always, it's like a pool of investors. Like how can you get them all the time?
How do you get in front of investors?
What is the best way for them to come to you? Because I know you can do it with hashtags, social media and stuff like that. So I think that's basically my question. Yeah.
There's a million different tips we could give, but one piece of advice I say is getting in front of them earlier than later, because you don't want to introduce yourself and also try to convince them and sell them in the same conversation. Usually it's just not realistic. So even if, say, you send over a little pitch video or pitch deck to an investor you found, they might come back and say, okay, you're too early stage. This is just still an idea. Come back when you have some traction and validation in your market. It's okay, because then you can go back to them. They'll give you feedback on, well, you need to work on A, B, and C. Go and do those things, then you come back to them, and you've immediately built way more rapport than just expecting a lot up front. So that's just some general advice. There are investor networks around the state. Florida Angel Nexus used to be one. I think they've merged with Florida Funders, but those are just hard to get in front of sometimes. So I say, look up any sort of pitch competitions. Even the competition that the school is doing, I think in the spring, is a great idea to start to get some attention. Go talk to the judges afterwards and ask their feedback, even if you're not someone who's pitching. Use all of those networking opportunities to make new connections. It will be, even though it seems time intensive, I think it'll be more effective than doing a lot of like online outreach and cold emailing. You got to meet them in person so they can see your face. Yeah, Nexus is one of them. There aren't in Florida too many organized investor groups that you can get in front of.
Yeah,
that
Florida
easily.
Funders, Seed Funders, Florida Angel Nexus. There's a couple of other ones. If you Google, venture capital angel investors, you can actually get the names of them relatively easy. She said something that I want to emphasize because it may have just become, it just sounded like earlier is always better, in the sense that, remember, these investors, you've met plenty of them, they all have an ego, right? I mean, they got a lot of money, right? So that kind of goes with, they love to share their opinion.
Yes.
So while they may not want to have you deliver a pitch to them, they would love for you to say, hey, you know what, I love your help. Your advice would mean something to me. Listen, I know you're very busy, but it would mean the world if you would grant me 15 minutes to take you out for a cup of coffee. I'll just let you talk, and I want to listen, right? That's the kind of stuff that investors are, well, of course, I'll be happy to go ahead and sit down with them, right?
Yeah.
And just get out, which is probably the best advice, is just get out early and start building friendships with them. Because if they like you, they will shepherd you through the process.
And locally, I would really recommend looking into Starter Studio. I mentioned these accelerator programs they do. So rather than you sitting at home working on this idea by yourself in your bubble, you're surrounded by other entrepreneurs that have the same struggles as you do, have the same questions, and you are around them every day working with them. And you're also surrounded by mentors and coaches that can help you with all that. And they know all the investors that are in town.
What's the name of the?
Check out that.
What's that cool entrepreneurship? Maybe it's called the Entrepreneurship Center. It's like in a mall or something.
There's the National Entrepreneurship Center.
Go
the
there.
Fashion Square Mall.
I love that
That's
place.
Along, like,
It's
not
like
far
Disneyland
from
for
us.
entrepreneurs, man. It's so cool.
And then downtown, it's kind of like a different ecosystem, downtown Orlando. I know it can be a pain to drive down there and find parking, but that's where a lot of meetups happen. That's where these accelerator programs are. That's where a lot of coaches and investors kind of congregate. So look for events there and just go.
I know Cassie Willard, who's over in the audience over here, she's a very active member of that National Association of Women Business Owners organization. So there's tons of associations and organizations out there that you can become a part of if you find that you connect with one group more than another. But just keep looking for different opportunities to get in front of people and perfect your thing. So I think we have time for one or two more questions. So we have one right over here.
Hi, how are you? My name is Andrea. I want to thank you for this amazing advice and all that you're talking about this subject, which is very interesting. My question is a little different, since my ask is not financial. It's more in the lines of Tofers, what you do, that you coach people into becoming thought leaders. How would you adapt an ask which is not related to money? For example, you're asking to be listened, or you're asking to have your idea put out in a forum. Socially, it's easier to do, I think, but if you're talking about, a professional body of people, how would you phrase that ask and that pitch?
Well, I think it's the same. It doesn't matter what the ask is. It has to be specific. It has to have hopefully some level of urgency involved. You've got to make sure that you've hit all of the key factors. We look at it from an investor standpoint. You've got to have clarity. You've got to have credibility. You have to identify the problem, identify the solution, have a compelling why, because people want to know why you're in this business, right? And I think if you hit those 5 things, when it gets down to the ask, make it specific, make it timed to where what is that, and also be aware of what's the purpose of your ask as well, because you need to know that it was actually delivered. I didn't get a clear idea of what your ask was when you just said that. I'm like, just a conversation. Well, anybody can have a conversation, but for what purpose and how long will that conversation last? So here's an example. So I'm going to share this strategy with you under the agreement that you're not allowed to use it with any of us three after the event. All right. So this is how I get mentors to mentor me that are far superior to me in intellect and cash flow and fame and everything else. When I find a way to get through to them, this is my specific ask. I say something to the effect of, and I want you to just hear the specificity and the call to action. I say something to the effect of, I have a really important question to ask you, and the question is, would you be my mentor? Now, before you answer that question, let me share with you this. If you were to say yes to that question, it would require no more than 5 minutes of your time each month over the phone. And I won't call you back the next month unless I can call you and tell you how I've incorporated the feedback from the previous month. This way you know that whatever time you're investing in me is invested well, and you're seeing the results come as a result of your advice. So knowing that I'm only going to take 5 minutes of your time, and I'm never going to call you back unless I can incorporate your previous thoughts, advice, would you be willing to be my mentor? Now there's a very specific ask there, right? I've never had somebody say no to that. Ever. And I've asked some very well-known people that, and like, how do you say no to that, right? It's just like, you'd be a jerk to say no to that.
Yeah.
I can give you 5 minutes of my time.
Yeah, everybody, right?
Over the phone.
Now you know why I
on
said
the phone.
prefacing you can't ask, because we get bombarded by 30 people. All of a sudden, wait, that's like 5 hours.
Very good. I know we have another question over here, and then I'm going to let him ask the last question because he's been patiently waiting here on the front row every time with his hand up. Yes.
Hello. Okay, cool. Hi, my name is Eric Alpazar. I'm an entertainment business student here at Full Sail. I had a peculiar question. So beyond the beginner point, is there ever a time where a pitch is too good, where you come off as insincere, or maybe like too good to be true, like the car salesman pitch, like this is the best Chrysler 200 you'll ever drive in your entire life, that kind of thing. How do you avoid being too good and being disconnected from your investor or audience?
Great question. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's about being too good. It's that disconnect. You know, you start to get in such a routine that it's hard to ask questions, right? So that might be a way out of it, is spending less time talking and more time listening and answering questions for people. But what do you think?
So one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from what arguably I think is probably the best professional speaker in the history of ever, this guy named Zig Ziglar, probably too old for you guys, but trust me, Google him, the guy's a genius. And he had a great tip one time. He said, if your presentation sounds canned, then you haven't canned your presentation. So there's this bell curve, or maybe it goes this way, I'm not sure how you would look at that, right? Where when you practice the pitch, there's this point where it just sucks. It's just too memorized. It's too artificial, right? And you've got to push through that dip where it's just weird and awkward. And then it's really hard on this uphill because now it just sounds too fake, too polished, and too perfect, and too poised. But once you get past that, once you've canned it, you've nailed it, then it allows you to be a little bit more impromptu. It allows you to kind of look over and have a conversation and then even stop midway and go, you with me on this? Would you have any questions now? And that's where that listening effect comes into play. So yes, you can. The answer to your question is it can be too polished, but if it's too polished, that means you haven't polished it enough. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Have to find the right balance.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Victor. Also attending the entertainment business program here at Full Sail. So my question relates a little bit more towards the follow-up. Basically, what is a good strategy to make sure that, let's say that your business is still in that seeder stage and you're not necessarily ready for an investor, but you have the opportunity to present and to pitch to an investor. What might be a good way or a good strategy to let them know that, okay, I know that I'm not there, like where you want me to be, but how can I get that follow-up? So like, what's a good way to get that follow-up?
Yeah, because you still want to get their attention. I think it's okay if you are a little vulnerable with them more so, but again, it's more about their ego playing to that, and you're asking for advice and feedback because they've seen hundreds or thousands of businesses, and so they're going to have feedback for you. So if you have maybe an effective ask for their mentorship side, then that might be appealing to them to get to meet with you. Yeah.
and to add on top of that, I think that's great. Remember this phrase: speed stuns. So you meet with somebody, and then a week later you send them an email thanking them. That's very stunning. It's not stunning. You meet with them, and before they get home, there's an email saying, thank you for your time, I appreciate you. That's speed, and it's stunning. And then that same day, you write a handwritten thank you card. I know that's kind of archaic for millennials, but trust me, old investors love it. Handwrite a thank you card, right? And get that in the mail. Take it to the post office so it's actually out on the trucks that night. So the next day in their mail, they get a thank you card. Speed stuns. They give you feedback and say, listen, go back, talk to 100 people, let me know what they say. Don't wait for 2 weeks to do that. Start talking to 100 people that night, right? And feed that through as fast as you can. And 3 days later, you say, I've talked to my 100 people. Speed stuns. Yeah.
It's a great note to end on. So I want to thank all of you guys for coming, but let's give a big round of applause to our amazing guests today, Topher and Dale.
Thank you.
And I think they'll be around for just a couple minutes if you guys want to stick around and say hi. So thanks again for coming.